Boys was a heavy metal assault on the horror genre, making vampires way cooler than they are today. Blending comedy, sex, and horror with a young, hot cast, and the two Coreys in the height of their fame was box office gold, and the film still spawns legions of fans. The Monster Squad brought back the classic monsters of the golden era of film: Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and more, all assembled to take on a group of kids known as the Monster Squad. The film tanked, but is beloved today by a loyal fan base. It was the summer of '87, and like then, it's time for these two to square off again. All right, welcome to another episode of Horror Face Off. Today we have the Monster Squad versus the Lost Boys. And on the show today, we welcome back Liv.
Hello.
Where are you from again, Liv?
I am from Los Angeles.
Got anything going on right now?
Just preparing for Halloween activities.
Nice. Awesome. All right, and we have Sean Clark, who many of you may know from the horror world. What's going on, Sean?
Just living, baby.
Yeah. You got anything happening for the Halloween season?
God. Yeah. It's a busy time. I'm like nonstop.
Is it? Yeah.
Went to the Halloween Ends premiere last night. Tomorrow night going to Universal Horror Nights. Then going
No way, I'm going to Horror Nights.
Oh, really? Tomorrow night?
Tomorrow, yeah.
No way. Okay. Well, maybe we'll bump into each other.
Sean, this is Liv. Liv, this is Sean.
I'm going from there to straight to Monster Palooza. Are you going to Monster Palooza this weekend?
I think I'm going on Saturday.
All right. Probably see you there on Saturday too. So I'll be there all weekend, and then yeah, it's just it's a crazy time for me with the convention world and trying to squeeze in haunts in between, and
Then I appreciate the time you made for us. So without further ado, we're going to get to it. Monster Squad versus the Lost Boys. We're going to start off with story. And Liv, since you're a seasoned vet on the show, you could start us off. I don't have to do this all the time now. I don't have to lead off all the time. So why don't you start off with story?
Okay. Well, I feel like that has to go to Lost Boys because Monster Squad is just like so goofy and stupid and like doesn't actually make sense at all. Not that it's bad. It's so fun and cute, but like, what is the plot really, other than like Dracula's a goon and has his little henchman?
All right. So short and succinct. Okay, cool. Sean?
I agree. Story definitely goes to Lost Boys. They're hard to compare the two because Monster Squad is such a kid's film and it's so much more fantasy oriented, where Lost Boys, obviously it's not real either, but at least it's a little more plausible, and I feel like the story, the Lost Boys story, is a little better crafted than Monster Squad, but they're so, if you were to say which one's the better for children, you'd have to give it to Monster Squad. It's they're two very different. I got a feeling we're going to go up against this in every category, but yeah, I have to give Lost Boys the edge.
So with story, I'm going to give it to the Lost Boys, and I'm going to kind of allude to what you said, Sean. I think the thing with, I think you could kind of give the edge to Monster Squad if it was crafted better. But there are some, real loose ends there. Just even from geographic standpoints to there's a lot of things that, 79 minutes isn't a lot of time, and it showed. I think that it could have been better. It could have been a better story if maybe a couple more rewrites or maybe a little bit more time was put into the right places. But at the end of the day, it's not even so much that Lost Boys was an unbelievable story, which I love. I did think it was. I think it's just Monster Squad kind of lacked in that category. So It's a Lost Boys sweep across the board. So we're going to go on to setting, and we're going to start off with you, Sean.
On the setting, the
setting
locations?
Of both films. Who do you got?
Hands down, got to give it to Lost Boys. I mean, I being a film locations nerd, that it's just such a fun location. I've been to Santa Cruz many times, and the boardwalk, and there's visually in the film just so much more eye candy than in Monster Squad, which is pretty dull. You know, a lot of just regular houses and a school, and with the exception of the finale, which was all shot on the Warner Brothers backlot. Oddly enough, I don't know if you guys know this, strange tie-in, same church in both movies.
No.
That's the same church that they ride up and get the holy water in Lost Boys. It was an added scene they shot, which one of the only shots other than the interiors of the house and the interiors of the cave, which was all on Warner Brothers in the big hangars there. But they used the church backlot set for that scene when they rode up and filled the holy water. Cool. Same church. Yeah, that's cool. Connection. There's your connection there right there.
87.
It's gonna be my new fun fact at parties.
Yeah, there you go. But I think, I just think, it just, there's so much more. You know, the bridge, you know, hanging on the bridge, and the cave and the ocean, and it just hands down way more beautiful setting.
All right. So hands down, Liv, are you gonna challenge him on this one?
No. I would also have to go with the Lost Boys. I mean, Santa Cruz just feels like a character in the movie. Like, it feels so integral to the plot. The fact that they're visiting their grandfather, and it's like this like almost like visiting of a hometown kind of thing. Whereas in Monster Squad, I mean, that could be any town in any state, and I would not fight you on that. But like, as someone who grew up in California, like, I've been to Santa Cruz a bunch, and like, I feel like they really kind of captured like the fun, whimsical side of it while telling this crazy badass vampire story. So
all right, so that's 2 for Lost Boys. And so I'm gonna say, though, like, I mean, you're talking about typical, like, you know, like a typical setting for the Monster Squad in the sense, but I love films like that. Like, I love the school-based films, like, you know, kids in a school in the suburban area, and I kind of really get a kick out of that. And again, yeah, the climax, you know, it was vaguely familiar because that kind of town is used, whether it's, you know, Monster Squad or, you know, whatever, Back to the Future. I know it wasn't the same
Gremlins,
like that type, but it's
all
familiar.
the same. It's all the same city. Yeah,
and you kind of like it. So, and then, you know, the house, Shadowbrook Road, I think it was, there was that house. But again, I think it could have done a better job at exploring these things, whereas Lost Boys, you know, really it caught the mood right away, and so it's kind of hard to knock it. So I'm going to go with Lost Boys as well. All right, so we're going to start off this one with we'll start off with Liv. Filmmaking. Go.
I feel so bad for Monster Squad right now. It'll win sometime, but again, I'm gonna have to go with Lost Boys. I mean, I look at Monster Squad and just like, it looks like a set to me. As someone who has spent a lot of time on set, like, it's very easy to look at something and be like, that's real, that's fake, and like, the special effects are even like, Dracula is like throwing dynamite at characters, and they're like blowing up in like such like Looney Tunes fashions, which really works for, I mean, it's a kids movie. Like,
well, it
shouldn't be insanely gory. It like should be a little fun and cheesy.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's got to be the only film where Dracula consistently uses dynamite.
It's awesome.
I don't know what that script, why they went that route, but yeah, he was loaded with dynamite from beginning to end on that film. I don't get it, but all right. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, you know, you look at Lost Boys and like the makeup looks awesome, and there's like actually fun, interesting camera work. I mean, it's not that necessarily that everything that's made for children is automatically like less of an art piece, but when filmmakers are taking their audience into mind, they are more likely to care less if it's children because it's going to be seen as more of like a cash grab.
Cool. All right. So we're going with Lost Boys. Sean, you going to break the trend?
Well, you know, I wish I could, but but you know, I mean, you have to understand you had a seasoned filmmaker like Schumacher, and Fred Decker was, you know, was his second movie. You know, is that right?
Yeah,
because I think he'd only done Night of the Creeps. Yeah. And you know, and that's a super low budget movie versus a big budget Lost Boys film with Richard Donner producing. It's kind of, it's, you know, it's kind of hard to, you know, apples and oranges.
Gotcha. So I gotta say that you know, like, it's funny because when I look at these two films and I look at which one I've watched more in my life, it's hands down Monster Squad. And I love both. I love both, but I just, you know, Monster Squad just finds its way on my TV like a lot more. So it's kind of, as I'm breaking it down now, it's like, wow, like Lost Boys is just smoking it, because I got to give Filmmaking the Lost Boys.
Yeah.
And not because of Monster Squad, just I thought it was a really well shot film. And, you know, I'll keep it kind of short. You guys said it all. So I'm going to give it to Lost Boys as well. All right, so now we're going to go on to acting and characters. In the past, I've kind of separated, but we're going to combine these into. Gotta get.
I'm just trying to think of anything Monster Squad could win on.
We're gonna see.
Well, you know, there was a campiness to some of the acting in Lost Boys as well. You know, especially from the kids. I mean, the Coreys for sure.
Why does he sound like a chain smoker? I still don't know.
Yeah, right. You sound like Norman Reedus sounds like nowadays, you know, like, hey, what's up, right? But anyway, yeah, I mean, as far as the kids are concerned, they're pretty dead even, you know, I mean, really. And there really aren't a whole hell of a lot of adult actors in Monster Squad that have significant screen time. I mean, I guess, you know, the cop dad, the mom, maybe. But when you look at the vampires and Jason Patric's performance and Diane Wiest, and even Ed, what's his name? Edward. What was his name?
Herman, I think.
Is it Edward Herman? Yeah. Who played Sam or Max? Sorry. With the exception of the end where he gets a little campy. I'd have to give the edge to Lost Boys as far as performance and characters. I gotta go Lost Boys too, because I think those are the four coolest, like, iconic vampires, modern day, even though it's 80s. I think they're the, you know, with the exception of Near Dark, it's the coolest, like, vampire crew. You know what I mean? And Near Dark is kind of, you know, those two I think are just.
There's a good matchup, Lost Boys.
Yeah, that's what you should have matched up.
We'll do that one next. We'll do.
And it's also 87.
There you go. I just
start this episode over.
Yeah. All right, Liv.
Okay. The only reason I will say that this one is closer to being a tie for me is because I love all the classic monsters. Like, Dracula is one of my favorite books. I grew up watching all the Universal Monster movies, and it's like the same as when you watch the Abbott and Costello movies. It's so fun to see these characters that were like the original beings of terror for people for 100 years until these like the like between when the books came out and when these movies came out, like there's something that's just like so good about seeing them turned into like the Three Stooges, basically. So I do really appreciate that for when it comes to characters, because it's so stupid and so funny. Again, seeing Dracula running around with dynamite or like crashing his car into a house and it blowing up, like it's just so unlike Dracula that like I love that for his character. And like him like fist fighting Van Helsing in the portal to hell, like it's such a funny take on these characters. But I agree with everything that John said about like The Last Boys, and it feels like there's more heart to it because like these characters are played a little bit straighter sometimes, and then sometimes Corey Feldman is talking in a chain-smoking voice and I'm dying laughing. But there's, and just like the vampires themselves are so iconic. Like again, it's like the thing I was saying about with Halloween, it's like these are the characters that you have a lot of merchandise for because they're just so much more recognizable in this way, where like you see merchandise of Monster Squad characters and it's like not the versions of them in Monster Squad, it's like the universal versions of them. So I think that the Lost Boys characters and the acting stands out so much more for that.
All right. Okay, so I don't know which side of the fence I'm going to land on. I'm going to talk it out and we'll see what happens. But so I agree with you both on the Lost Boys. There's very little to dislike or discredit. You know, we can poke fun at Corey Feldman all we want, but it was awesome. Like, I mean, it was fun. He was hilarious. Like, you know, but you know, and like Kiefer Sutherland, I mean, that he killed in that. Like, I mean, I thought he was awesome. You know, obviously Jason Patrick. So like, it's acting wise, you know, I definitely side towards Lost Boys based on, you know, mostly the names that I just mentioned. If we're going to couple it though with characters, I agree. There's two ways to go about it, right? You could look at the characters in Lost Boys and see how, you know, kind of real they were, how well defined they were, and how they played out. But then if you're going to really take a broad view of things, we're talking about the universal monsters, and those are the characters. And if I do that, it's hard for me to go against Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and the Gillman. Like, I mean, that's the I worship the universal era, like, you know, like nobody's business. I love it. So but
you can't give them credit for creating those characters.
No, but we're
they borrowed them, you know.
No, exactly.
Like if I had a movie and I put Michael Myers in my movie, you know, should I get credit for? I didn't make, you know.
No,
if you're basing the two films on each other, these guys created their own original vampires. These guys borrowed, you know, previous IPs, you know.
I agree with that. But like, you know, we got to kind of look at what is in front of us. And like, you know, I mean, whether they borrowed or, you know, it was what was in the movie. Where I debate myself kind of further to your point was, were they well used? Like, were the characters of like dynamite wielding Dracula, like, is that what I wanted to see? You know, as a kid, I didn't really think about it too much. When I was like, you know, older and I'm watching it and I'm like, you know, it clued in. And the Mummy was relatively useless, you know, in the film, but looked awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
all the designs were killer except for, I thought Dracula looked lame. That's my opinion.
I liked him as a kid. I thought he had a good look, a very good North American kind of take on it. But man, this is tough. But you know what? In a matchup where I think a movie needs a little bit of love, I'm going to throw the first point to Monster Squad and say that I'm going to give the character actors, you know, I'm going to give it to Monster Squad. It's hard, but
I'm glad it has 1 point so far.
Yeah. Well, the tabulations will be quick on this one, but anyways, so This is a category that I've never done this before, but I'm gonna just eradicate it from this show, and that's scare factor, because I think it's pretty safe to say that the Monster Squad doesn't really scare anybody.
The Monster Squad is terrifying when the Wolfman blows up and pieces himself back together.
and when he kills the paramedic, it had moments, but I don't know if
and we got kicked in the nards. That was terrifying to me.
Nullified. All right, but we are going to go on to kills. So for kills, we're going to start with Liv.
I think I'm going to give this one to Monster Squad because, I mean, like I just said, Dracula's running around with dynamite. It's so good. The Wolfman blows up and then like literally limbs crawl back to each other and like put themselves back together. Like I think I remember more of the kills in Monster Squad than I do in The Lost Boys, and it's because in a more straight played horror movie, like I'm expecting a lot of characters to die, but in watching a kids movie, that is not what I'm expecting, and it's like the deaths are so outlandish in Monster Squad, and again, like Dracula and Van Helsing fist fighting in a portal to hell in the end, like it's wild and it's original and it's hilarious, and it does what it's supposed to do for that movie.
Cool. Well put. Sean. She made you think, right? You were a little.
Hey, hold on. No, I mean, I was thinking. I think I do have to agree with her on Monster Squad, because most of the kills in Lost Boys are done off screen. You don't really see them, with the exception of when they attack the group in the woods, whatever, doing their little fire pit. I love that one shot of David biting into the guy's skull, and it just, that's a great shot. But other than that, like, you see the security guard get pulled. You see the two people in the car, the couple making out, get pulled. You don't see them die, It's very, it's pretty tame.
I don't know if this changes your answer, but what about the death of the vampires themselves?
Yeah, I mean, Marco's death, was cool. He was bleeding everywhere, and death by stereo blowing up was cool. I thought David's death was kind of lame, just being staked in the, and Paul's death in the bathtub. I mean, those were cool. But
they've got nothing on Dracula with dynamite.
Yeah, but I just keep thinking how cool that scene would be when they took Michael to show them, when they attack the people.
Yeah.
If they had just said, "Watch this, Michael," and they just started throwing dynamite, that would have been a lot more exciting, right? No, I don't know. But I'm giving Monster Squad this one.
All right, I think you're warming up. You're kind of getting soft on this matchup, so it's kind of cool.
Soft on the squad.
All right, so I'm gonna keep it short. I'm gonna give it to Monster Squad as well. I kind of, just to your point, Liv, I kind of remember certain things more. Again, maybe it's because I've seen it a lot more, but I just remember them a little bit more. And they don't have to be unbelievable kills. Sometimes they can be funny, and that makes it win the category, if that's what you like, right? So we'll move on to the next category, which is a little tricky with this one, and you could interpret it however you want. I'll start off with this one. It's Antagonist. So you don't just have necessarily one. I mean, you can zero in on one, I think, in both films, and that you could choose to do. I'm gonna kind of use the broad strokes, and I'm going to select the Monster Squad antagonists. Again, I'm not going to regurgitate what I said, but it's universal monsters, and whether they were done as well as they could have been, well, they weren't, but whether it could have been better, they're the universal monsters. So for me, I give it to Monster Squad. We'll go with Sean.
Definitely giving this the Lost Boys. I mean, the only real antagonist in Monster Squad was Dracula. I mean, otherwise, Frankenstein was friendly. The Mummy didn't do shit. I mean, Wolfman and Creature looked cool and everything, but I almost really wouldn't consider them antagonists, really. I mean, I
The
guess
Wolfman also like wanted his life to be ended. He like wanted no
Yeah.
part of what was going on.
When he-
yeah,
when he
the
was a
only
guy.
one who had a mean-spirited agenda was Dracula.
Yeah.
Where
Wolfman, when he was a wolf, he was pissed. He was mean.
he was pissed, but he was also sympathetic, really. But Lost Boys, I mean, I just love. I mean, David, just such a cocky, just such a great character and manipulative, and you know, I didn't really care for Max. That's the one thing I hated about.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the Lost Boys, but if I could change one thing, is I just felt like when Max turned into a vampire at the end, it was goofy. It just felt goofy. He didn't look cool like they looked cool. he looked goofy, and he does that thing where he goes with his tongue that just every time I see it, he's all, he goes, and it just like, why that was such a bad choice. But I just feel like there's more of a, the whole thing with like, you never grow old, but you have to feed, and just that whole, there's just like this, I don't know, something about it. Just it feels more real and more like, put yourself in that situation. What would you do? I would have just joined them and partied and killed people, but that's me. I guess Jason Patrick's character Michael had more of a heart. But I mean, hey, win-win. He gets gets to live forever. What's the problem?
It's true.
But
yeah, I'm going with Lost Boys.
All right. Liv, you're going to break the tie. Whose feelings are you going to hurt?
This one is, I don't know. This one's kind of hard because, like, I also feel that Max is like kind of goofy in the end, and he's just. This might be partially because I grew up watching Gilmore Girls, and he's just like the grandfather in that. He's like like a little dopey sometimes, so it's like so hard for me to see him as an intimidating character. And then he starts making stupid faces. But like David and the rest of the vampires are so fucking cool.
Yeah.
But I also just like love, every iteration where Dracula is running around as like the ringleader of this group of monsters, because it's like the same thing as Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, where again like Dracula's like running around like gathering all the. I don't know where this came from, that he's just like the master of them all. I don't know who came up with that. I don't know why it's like a continuing trend that he's like the ringleader.
It was a cartoon. There was a cartoon back in the day, and it teamed up Dracula and Frankenstein. I don't remember what it was called, but
Groovy Ghoulies.
Sorry,
the Groovy Ghoulies.
Was it? I don't know if that was.
Well, the Groovy Ghoulies was like the Monster Squad. It had all of them.
Yeah. So maybe that could have been it. I don't remember, but I remember I used to watch it like Saturday mornings, and maybe that was it. But like, I mean, Monster Squad's like Scooby Doo, right? Like, I mean, that's basically what you could say that movie is like. But anyways, sorry, go on.
You know what? Just for the hell of it, I'm gonna say Monster Squad, and I'm gonna say Monster Squad because your antagonists have like their change of heart, or like the Wolfman being like, I don't want any part of this. Like, it gives him some turmoil. And like Frankenstein befriending the little girl. It kind of like takes things from their original stories and spins it a little bit to make it a little bit more kid friendly and cute. But it does kind of, in the end, make them more interesting as villains. Whereas in The Last Boys, the whole thing is just like they're a bunch of dumb teenagers who are halted forever, or like college age, but they're like halted forever in that age and just selfish because of it. And
okay,
I've seen a bunch of that.
All right, cool.
I'm just curious why they decided to turn Laddie and let him live.
We'll never know.
I mean,
Just leave
like,
it at
this
that.
kid's cool. Let's keep him around.
Yeah.
Get him a
Their
Sergeant
PA.
Pepper's jacket immediately. So, yeah.
Excuse me. All right. So we're going on to the final category, which is fittingly the ending. And we've all kind of touched on the endings of both these films at times. I'll lead it off and then let you, my guests,
I'll go
finish
last.
it off. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna give the ending to Monster Squad. I mean, it was they were all there in the town square. There was an ambulance, there was an explosion, there was like Frankenstein versus Dracula. There was a whole bunch of countesses getting, I mean, the Wolfman kind of, well, I guess you wouldn't say that would be the ending, but it had a big bang ending, and I liked it. I'm not always like about like, just the explosions and, just the eye candy, but it had an ending that I thought delivered. Yeah, so I'm gonna, and again, yeah, you guys both touched on the very ending with Lost Boys, but I'm not gonna really harp on that. I'm just gonna go with the Monster Squad being fun, and I'm gonna throw it to you, Liv.
I'm also gonna give this one to Monster Squad. Again, Lost Boys. Every time I rewatch The Lost Boys, the ending is where I kind of start looking at my phone a little bit more, because I'm like, I know what happens here. I'm like not watching vampires bully some like poor unassuming guy who's in town for the summer, which is what I really watched The Lost Boys for. But again, just with Monster Squad, like I just can't get over Dracula and Van Helsing like choking each other out as they're spinning through a portal,
vertically.
and Van Helsing just like throwing a thumbs up as he grabs Dracula. Like, it's so stupid, and it makes me laugh every single time. And you do have like the big battle with like everyone coming in and like the explosions, and then you even have like the sad moment of where Frankenstein has to say bye to the little girl and she's crying. So
It's a cool score.
Bogus.
It's a good score. It's a heartwarming like music piece at that point too. So like, yeah. So Monster Squad.
Monster Squad.
All right, and Sean bringing it home.
Okay. I do love that big bang ending in Monster Squad. I agree with everything you say there. But I'm giving the edge to Lost Boys for one reason. Grandpa's final line.
Oh, that is so good. That's true.
I mean, it is so perfect. It just comes out of nowhere, and just the, one thing I couldn't stomach about Santa Carla, all the damn vampires, and then just the people are strange from Echo and the Bunnymen coming in, doom, doom, doom. It's fucking perfect ending. I mean, it really is a perfect ending. Although I will say that the final battle in the house is such bullshit, really, because I mean, you saw how quickly they picked off a group of like 15, muscular teens or young men or whatever, a group of people they killed very quickly.
But these kids are resourceful,
Yeah, but instead of just killing them like they did, they let's talk to them first. Let's have conversations with each one of these characters to give them a chance to kill me. I gotta let that go. But just because of Grandpa's final line, I gotta give the ending to Lost Boys.
All right.
I do always forget about the ending line. It is so good.
It is, yeah.
Did I sway you? You're on the fence now, aren't you?
I still love Van Helsing giving a thumbs up and choking out Dracula, but the final line with the grandpa is fucking incredible.
So we're back with the winner, and it was the Lost Boys with 13, Monster Squad with 8.
That's
we don't have a Lost Boys fan on this show right now. That's for sure. Yeah. That's awesome.
And yes, this is screen used, just so you know.
Really?
Yeah, and why it's extremely small. So
that's pretty cool. Yeah. Wow. Well, how'd you get it?
Prop store auction recently. They auctioned off all 4 Lost Boys jackets.
That's pretty cool.
What?
Yep.
That's awesome.
The other 3 are in the other room. So,
Are you for real?
I got all 4. Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
If they go missing, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Wasn't me.
don't bring them with you when you're meeting her on the weekend.
I won't be wearing this to Horror Nights tomorrow night. So,
wow, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty sweet, guys. This was not as close a match as some, and that happens. You know, sometimes a movie just walks away with it. So, but it was a lot of fun to kind of go through the motions and see what prevailed. In the end, it was the Lost Boys pretty handily, and we'll see if the Lost Boys comes back. It looks like we already have another matchup for the Lost Boys in a future episode, so we'll see.
It's a good one too.
Yeah, we'll see when that one can kind of come to fruition. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank Liv for joining me. Of course, Sean, as always, it's always
AKA
cool
Marco,
to chat with you. and that's it. Stay scary, and we'll see you
Marco.
soon.